right, welcome back to another episode of Another Dimension. My name is Quinn Cleese.
I'm Trask Noble.
And that's Taylor in the background.
Hello.
This week, we're going to talk about the ins and outs of transporting an open deck load. We'll get into legal dimensions, planning, and just kind of what we go through and what we feel is important,
Especially as a driver in the office even.
Yeah, and some things that a customer could look for, questions we would ask when we're going to move a load for them.
Awesome. Moving in, weekly trucker vocabulary. We started this new last week. Last week, I think we actually threw out 4. They were deadhead, bobtail, laden, and unladen.
Correct.
Not going to cover those again this week. We are going to define what an alligator / gator / rogue gator is. We've all been driving down the highway and you see a blown out tire, and it's been, you can attest to this, but it's been common trucker knowledge that they've been called gators for...
They kind of look like the back of an alligator.
Yep, laying on the side of the road. So next time you see one on the side of the road, make sure to call it a gator.
My kids will love that.
While we're on that, what's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
I don't know.
One will see you now and one will see you after a while.
Oh my God.
The other word we're going to define this week is chicken coop. And Quinn, you want to hit that one?
Sure. A chicken coop is a weigh station or a scale where trucks get pulled into.
Probably seen them on the side of the road. They're
Yeah.
usually when they're open, there's 10, 15 trucks lined up waiting to get in.
Inspection station.
Yeah.
So that's what a chicken coop is.
Moving right on into story time, I guess, for this week. Just recently in our neck of the woods, down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I think it was Monday, a news blip came across the computer, and there was an oversized generator, and we'll show pictures of this on the YouTube version of our podcast, but there was an oversized generator that took out a bridge.
Got stuck under a bridge.
A bridge. Didn't take it out. Got stuck under a bridge, which leads into, it's a perfect segue for our topic this week.
Planning and
Yep.
routing and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll hop
yep.
right into that.
Yeah, when you see the pictures, it's a
not,
pretty bad situation.
It's not pretty. I mean, there's nothing good about it.
Yeah. And when something like that hits, depending, I would assume in this situation also, they're going to have to look at the structure of that bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking, not only the product on a trailer. You got an unhappy customer and...
Well, imagine the driver
Man.
going 60 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour down the highway, and all of a sudden just coming to a dead stop.
Yeah.
Hopefully he had a seatbelt on.
Yeah, hope
There
he's
wasn't
all right.
any injuries. It didn't say any injuries, but it backed up traffic for like 6 hours while they literally unhooked this thing with a crane and had to move it and get it out of there.
Probably put it on the other lane to go
I'm
back
sure.
south to get someplace. So that's the story for the week. Oh, man. So what do you want to talk? You want to get right into like what the legal dimensions of a load are?
Yeah, what's the topic again?
The ins and outs of transporting an open deck load.
Okay. I think the most important thing in transporting before we can get into other things and explain other things, I think we need to define what a legal dimension is, and then we can kind of go from there.
So the DOT sets legal dimensions. What that means is length, width, height, weight. The legal gross weight, meaning the weight on the trailer, the truck, trailer, and product,
Yep.
is 80,000 pounds. You can get permitted to be above that weight.
And we'll get into that.
Right.
Right?
The legal dimensions for length, width, and height. Height is 13'6"
On the trailer.
on the trailer. So, yes.
I guess we probably should define that. On the trailer.
Well, you can't stack things up to make
Yep.
it over 13'6".
Yep.
Like a van trailer or a refrigerated trailer are typically at 13'6"
Yep.
to maximize capacity.
Yep.
And then legal width is 102 inches,
Just 8'6".
which is 8'6".
Same with height on a standard trailer, on a standard flatbed.
Correct.
Now, different trailers allow you to get different heights legally, and that's why they have them, but we can get into that as well later as we get a little bit more in depth.
So if you drew if you had a flatbed trailer,
Yep.
if you drew an imaginary wall or a box around it to those dimensions, your product has to fit within
that realm.
those walls.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Overdimensional is probably going to get a little bit hard to explain. It's something that I feel we're pretty versed in, but someone listening to this probably doesn't have any clue. And that's not wrong, but that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
I guess let's start out. What is an overdimensional load?
Anything that is outside of those legal dimensions is
Okay.
considered overdimensional. And when you go beyond those dimensions, you can't create an oversized load. And what I mean by that, if you're limited to 102 inches wide, you can't put two 60-inch pieces next to each other to make you 120 because it's a divisible load. You could divide that down and make it legal.
Yep.
Within the legal dimensions. Same thing for height. You can't just stack things up 15 feet tall and get a permit for it.
Yep. Otherwise, there'd be trucks rolling down the road with 30 pieces of whatever it may be stacked on
Hitting
top
bridges.
of it. Hitting bridges.
Right. So that's what we mean when we say overdimensional. Stay within the legal limits, I guess.
How does one go about permitting for an oversized load? Are there any specific realms of an oversized load? And what I mean by that is 8.6 is legal dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to get a permit for 8.6 1/4?
Yeah. You
Okay.
do.
Is an 8.6 or 8 foot 7 inch wide load easier to get a permit for than let's say a 16-foot wide load?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm going to generalize here.
Yep.
102, so 8'6" to 12 foot
Yep.
is pretty standard, right? I mean, there may be some routing issues. There may be certain states may have escort requirements, which we'll get into. But 12 foot and under,
It's pretty easy.
it's run of the mill,
Yep.
oversized stuff. Once you get 12 to 15, then you get into like this next tier, and over 15 is a whole other ballgame. So
Yeah. And the guys that are doing the
And when
15
we're
to
talking
30 foot
that's
wide.
width.
Yep. And the guys that are doing the 15 to 30 foot wide loads are probably looking at us like, oh, the 12 to 15 range is like run of the mill. What are these guys talking about? And you're probably right, but it's no different than the experience that we have with the 8.7 to 12 wide. Like
Sure.
we're comfortable with it. It may be major to someone, and you shouldn't take it lightly by any means, but it's what we're used to. It's in our daily operation,
It's
I
normal
guess.
for
Yeah,
us.
it's normal for us.
So.
How does one go about getting a permit?
Well, the first thing you have to do is have the dimensions, the exact dimensions.
Yeah.
If it's 10 foot one wide, you apply for a permit through the state, whatever state you're going through.
Each state, right?
Each state, yeah. So if we're going from Wisconsin to Fargo, North Dakota, which is right on the border of Minnesota and North Dakota, we're gonna have to get a Wisconsin permit. We're gonna have to get a Minnesota permit, and we're
Yep.
gonna have to get a North Dakota permit.
Yep.
And the way we do it is, if you'll be routed. Sometimes you see road construction, so you can only take, the sign may say 12 foot and over, use alternative route or whatever. So you have to get approved routes through the state, and then you apply for them and you pay for them.
And you can apply for them. There's permitting services out there that'll do it for you at a fee, obviously. We use one for some of the less run-of-the-mill type shipments that we do, or locations that we don't go, but we do a lot of it in-house as well.
Right.
And you can get set up with each state individually. It's not easy.
It's tedious.
It's tedious work. It's busy work, but sometimes it's nice to have that control over it, because you have the answers and you get the feedback right away. Like, hey, you can't go down I-80 in wherever because there is a 10-foot wide lane restriction.
Yep. And then once you get your permit, there's something called provisions, which is like a supplement to the permit. There will be some restrictions or directions on your permit, but you also have to reference the provisions. And what the provisions will lay out is each state's different. So, and each width or height is different,
Yep.
or weight is different. So
Route.
yeah, so if you, like top of my head. All right, Minnesota. If you're over 12 foot, you need to have extendable mirrors on your truck.
Yep.
Wisconsin, we don't need that.
Yep.
In the state of Kentucky, if you have more than a 10-foot overhang, you need an Escort. That's each state is different, so you need to read your provisions.
I think Georgia, if I remember right, you need to have an amber light permit.
Right.
But also, I think you need to sign their permit in red ink.
There's something
There's
weird.
one state,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's Georgia, so don't hold me to that, but one state in the United States makes you sign the permit, and it's not valid unless it's signed in red ink.
Right. So in Georgia, okay, so you have to buy an amber light permit, which is a $2 permit,
Yep.
and you have to submit it through the mail and wait for it. It's kind of an antiquated process. But you get that permit, and I don't remember if there's a size limit on that, but if you don't have the amber light permit, you have to have an Escort,
Yep.
which would be hundreds of dollars compared to this $2
Yep.
permit. So each state is different. Hours of service, you're limited by daylight hours in most states. Half hour before sunrise and then half hour after sunset is when you can operate. In the state of Wisconsin, you can put flashing lights on the back,
and run continuous.
up to a certain width.
certain holidays.
Yeah.
This is all laid out in the provisions, and honestly, I think maybe Taylor, maybe you could maybe show a provision sheet at this time, and people can get a glimpse of what we're talking about.
The bottom line is, as a driver, as a carrier, you need to follow those, or you're going to get
Or
pulled over.
someone needs to look at them before you go.
Right, and that's important to have your operations team run through that with your drivers, so everybody's on the same page. And that we do a lot of that for route planning. Hey, we can get to this point. We're gonna, we're 14 foot wide. We're gonna get to Joplin, Missouri. We're gonna stay at the Petro, and we're gonna get you reserved parking or whatever. It decreases the
Chance for error.
and it puts a driver at ease. Hey, here's the plan. We're all on the same page. Let's roll.
Imagine this. I mean, everyone hasn't driven through Chicago. I can guarantee you that. But I have. I know you have. Taylor, you probably have.
Plenty of times.
Driving through Chicago in a car, a personal vehicle, is stressful. Imagine driving through Chicago with an overdimensional shipment,
Yeah.
having to get off on this exit because otherwise you'll hit an overpass. Following this, that's your route, and then having to pay attention to all that and know that, because you can't be on your phone. You can't, you're in contact with your Escort, but there is a huge level of stress added to moving these shipments that people don't realize, and
Right.
it just goes to help ease the driver and keep them calm, in a good state of mind, and all in all, it helps make sure we don't have an issue.
Right. I think one thing for shippers to look at, we haul a lot of pipe,
Yep.
and a lot of our customers require us to drop a trailer, and it helps us and them. So we're gonna pop up a picture of a pipe load here, but these pipe loads are tedious. They load all this stuff one by one. So when you see the picture, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the guys who load the trailers, God bless them.
Bless their souls.
It is a puzzle. But we've had certain times where we went to pick up the load of pipe, and this could be beams. This isn't just pipe. I'm using it as an example. And you'll see all the 4x4s in between the layers. And
Taylor, can you circle one of those pieces of dunnage on that shipment?
Got it.
And as you're building this load and going up, all of a sudden it's going like this, and now you're outside of those imaginary walls that we drew on the box of the trailer to make it legal.
And there's multiple pieces of pipe next to each other, so you can't do it.
So it's divisible load,
Yep.
correct? So, so that's one thing to remember. If you're loading a drop trailer or loading any trailer, you have to stay within those.
Or if you're, flip it to the other way, if you're a driver picking up a drop trailer, make sure you're looking for those things, because it may be legal at the rails.
Yeah.
But as
They
you
go like this.
as you get up, it might pop out, or they might not account for it.
Mm-hmm.
What was the example you always use? The house and the faucet. Explain that to the people.
Okay, so when you are, let's say we're gonna move a box, but let's use a house for an example, and the house is 20 by 40, and we go to pick up. So that's what we get a permit for. Right?
20 foot wide,
20 foot wide, 40 foot long. Well, what about the faucet?
the water faucet.
Yeah. Or the electrical panel that's hanging on that side of that house.
Yep.
You have to use those dimensions when you're getting a permit because you just went from 20 foot wide to 20 foot 6.
Yep.
And that may change. Hey, this was a safe route at 20 feet, but at 20 foot 6, we're going to.
You're not going to make that corner.
Yeah, we're going to take out a mailbox
Yeah.
or whatever. So measuring accurately is a big thing.
A lot of the times what we do is we'll send someone over from either John in the shop, myself, yourself. Chad's done it. Dave does it out on the road. We'll send someone to verify the dimensions.
Yeah. Because some of these as a rule of thumb, well, sometimes we order permits early based on the dimensions that we have or have verified. Because sometimes permits take a while.
Yeah.
When you get into some of these super loads, the planning and permitting process could take weeks, if not months.
45, 60 days, something like that.
And once you get into super loads, it's a whole nother ballgame. We had one that went to Ohio.
Yep.
Why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Okay.
And the permitting process and the obstacles that we had to overcome with the timing and
Let's just play that backwards. I mean, look at the obstacles from the start. We quoted it.
Mm-hmm.
We went out and looked at it. We went out and looked at it again after it was finished.
Yep.
Then we went out and loaded it, brought it to our yard. It sat here because the customer wasn't ready, which delayed the permitting process again. We then supplied our permits,
which were only good for a few days.
only good for a few days. We got there. Our escort didn't show up or our bucket truck didn't show up in Indiana.
Yep.
And if you know anything about the Indiana bucket truck list, it's like 25 to 30 vendors. And during the middle of the summer, those vendors are the only ones that can do their road projects as well. So finding a bucket truck is a miracle, let alone finding one last minute is an even greater miracle.
Yep.
Probably have better odds of winning the lottery, but. So we ended up finding one, but then our Ohio permit expired.
Yep.
So we had to rewait. No, it wasn't the permit expired. It was Memorial Weekend, wasn't it?
Labor Day.
Labor Day.
So we had to be off the road
By noon.
on Friday before Labor Day.
Yep.
And long story short, everything was lined up and
We had permits in hand.
The bucket truck didn't show up. So then when we finally recovered a bucket truck, we needed another police escort.
Yep.
And
Oh, I forgot about that.
the state patrol was busy. We called in a favor to John's brother, who's a sheriff in
Ohio.
Southern Ohio, and he called a favor to a state patrol person who graciously made themselves available for us to go into Ohio.
But then we ended up not making it all the way through Indiana like we were supposed to.
Yes.
Because of the routing.
Yep.
It's not just like, it's a 2-hour drive across or 3-hour drive across. It was like, we're driving here, then we're coming up here, 2 roads over, we're taking a left and going exactly where we just started.
Yep.
And we didn't make it through. So now after we jumped through all these hoops.
Because of the delay with the bucket truck.
Correct. And we didn't make it through. And now all of a sudden we have to call these guys who just did us a huge favor. I think someone canceled his Memorial Day plans or left a day late to go up north.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we didn't make it. So then we had to sit on it, I
At
think.
the state line.
Yep. And then it sat there for a weekend.
Yep. And then we went back on Tuesday.
We brought the driver home.
Right. We went back on Tuesday, I think, and delivered it.
Yeah. And then because of our delay, the customer had to make some exceptions because the crane they had to rent, they would not allow it to operate with people inside the building because of how big this tank was.
Right. And that's an example of the obstacles it takes to move super loads, oversized loads. It was not a pleasant situation.
For either.
Right. We were honest. They were understanding.
They were clearly upset. They had people that they had to answer to too, but we wouldn't talk to them.
And they knew what we were up against before we even started this project. When we quoted it, we said, "Hey, with the holiday, it's a crapshoot." in the end, everything's good. Had a great meeting with them.
Yep.
And but when
We've done more loads with them.
when we get in those situations, you have to man up.
Yep.
Like
Doesn't
we ran through the entire process with them.
Yep.
And
I mean, we had the state's emails and all that, so that helped. Like, the state said we did everything that we were supposed to, and that kind of stuff helps. And it's not that we were trying to say that we were right and they were wrong, or vice
there was
versa.
nobody wrong.
It was just the fact that, hey, this is what we're dealing with. We're not blowing smoke, but can you please recognize this or understand this? And because we did that, I think our relationship's even stronger than what it was.
I would agree. Yeah. So
I guess moving on, let's talk about escorts.
not the kind of escorts that
Oh, bummer.
you're thinking of. So
What's an escort?
An escort is based on your permit and based on your state. If you are over a certain dimension, you need an escort, which is like a pilot car, a vehicle to help you move that load, to stop traffic, to
Block traffic.
to see if there's any dangers, anything in a roadway. They're kind of your eyes and ears.
Whose eyes and ears?
The drivers.
Okay.
They're there to support the driver.
Yep.
There's up to certain dimensions. Sometimes you need one escort. Sometimes you need them in the front. Sometimes you need them in the back. It depends on if it's a 2-lane or a 4-lane road, and each state again is different.
And also dimensions.
Correct.
You wouldn't put a pilot car in the back of your truck. I guess maybe we should define a pilot escort. Pilot
You
car.
mean a pole car?
Yeah, pole car. My
So
bad.
a high pole. So there's also, if you're over height, certain states require a pole car, a high pole. So the escort will have a pole up on the front of their car, and they will be your lead car. So they will go down the highway, and if they hit a power line, if they hit a bridge with that pole, you need to
Slow down and stop.
you need to do something.
Yep.
So if a pole car hits a bridge, it's not going to damage anything. This is what
Nope.
they're designed to do. So you hit a bridge, they're going to radio back to the driver, and they say, "Hey, I hit this bridge. You're going to have to ramp it." And what that means is get off at the exit,
Yep.
go to the top of the
On-ramp.
overpass, and get back on the highway.
But it's not always that easy.
It's not always that easy. If
How
there's
many
roundabouts
times,
or medians,
or what happens if there's not an on-ramp?
then you have issues.
Now the driver's pulling over, parking on the side of the road, waiting for the escort to get back somehow, go back south or north, whatever way he's going, and then hook back up with him, and then get back in front of him far enough ahead so that you can make these adjustments along the way. Because it doesn't do any good to have a car in front of you
No, they
going
should.
55 miles an hour down the highway, because by that time you might as well just
You
say,
hit it.
boom, sorry.
Yeah. And escorts and pole cars, they're a different breed. When you find a good one,
Keep
hang
'em.
on to them, treat them well,
Make sure the drivers treat them well. Make sure
yeah.
they treat the drivers well.
and the biggest thing again, we beat this like a dead horse, but communication. It's important. So.
I think let's segue a little bit. We kind of talked about routing, those kind of things with the provisions. Taylor, you can show those whenever you get a second. That'd be great.
Yep.
Is there a way, let's say I have a 12-foot piece. It's 12 foot tall. How does someone know what type of trailer that they need to use?
If you're a seasoned shipping person and you're moving that product all the time,
Yep.
or if it's common for you, they're going to know. We had one this morning.
Yep.
So on a standard step deck, you can go with 10 feet.
Yep.
They're 40 inches tall. So that's 13.6 when you add 10 feet to it. So the question, we had a request, the product was 10 feet.
I think you're off there.
What?
40 plus 10, that's 160. Yeah, you're right. My bad.
That's good little shoot math.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Potsner. I hope you're listening.
Anyway, so they had this 10-foot piece, and you asked, are they going to put it on dunnage? And dunnage is wood or lumber,
4x4s.
blocking.
Yep.
Are they going to put it on dunnage on our deck?
Yep.
And the answer was yes. So now you're talking your 10-foot 4. So now we have
trailers that can do it on a step deck.
we have low profile step decks,
Yep.
but not everybody has those. So then you go down to a double drop, which you could put 11.6 on.
Yeah, Taylor, can you pop up a couple pictures of a flatbed, a step deck, and a double drop, just so people can get a good look at what we're talking about?
Yeah.
You got it.
So with the dunnage, we're going to have to put it on, or he wants it on a double drop, which is completely fine.
Legal?
Legal,
Now we don't need a permit.
and now we don't need a permit. Yep.
So a flatbed, just as a rule of thumb, flatbed you can go 8.6 off the deck. Step deck you can go 120 inches, 10 feet. Double drop about 12 feet. We have mini decks, we have specialized.
No, 11.6.
Yeah, with mini deck though you can go more. Like
Yep.
there's specialized trailers, those kind of things.
Right,
So
but as a rule of thumb for a shipper, like you said,
Yep.
8'6" on a flatbed, 10 foot on a step deck, and 11.6,
and we're talking height
correct, of your product.
of your product.
Yep. Again, maximum width is 102 for legal
On all
dimensions.
trailers.
Yep. So,
Cool. Should help.
yeah.
What does it take from a driver's standpoint to be able to haul an oversized shipment? I would guess that if I was a prospective driver and I came here looking for a job and I said, hey, I want to pull oversized shipments, you'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's something that you can just start doing. And maybe you know that process.
Yeah, it's a comfort thing too for drivers. So we've got a driver who is comfortable pulling some oversize,
Yep.
but where he gets concerned. So, okay, let me take a step back here. So if you've got a flatbed and you've got a 12-foot wide piece of steel on it,
Yep.
that's 4 inches thick or whatever, you can see on top of it, you can see around it, and that's a whole different ballgame than having a big, huge 12-foot wide box behind you.
That's 10 foot tall.
Right, that you can't see around, you can't see the top of it, and it's just another.
Not to interrupt you, but that's the point of an escort. That's a great example. We should have probably shared that before.
That's where those are.
They're your
their
eyes and ears. They
Yes.
tell you, hey, there's a car
Hopefully
coming on.
not ears.
Yeah, hopefully not ears. But they tell you there's a car coming up on the on ramp. Make sure you can get over, and they'll get over and block traffic for you. It helps the motoring public, and it also helps the driver.
Yep. Back to like a load of steel example, just flat sheet steel kind of thing. If it's on a flatbed, you're going down a 2-lane road, and you might be tall enough to clear a mailbox, and you may not have to worry about it. But there's just everything is different. And if say you've got a long piece, but we do a lot of crane booms, right? So the crane boom is legal width, but it could be 75, could be 95 feet long.
Do they make special trailers for that?
Yeah, they make stretch trailers for that.
Okay. Taylor, you're going to be busy this
We've-
episode.
we've-
Can you whip up another one of those for us?
We've got,
Got
stretch flats, steps, and double drops or RGNs. And what a stretch trailer or extendable trailer does is it stretches out.
Basically, it breaks in the middle or behind the neck or at some point in that trailer, and your trailer that is this long now stretches out, and it can become this long.
To accommodate longer shipments.
Yep.
So
Why would you do that? Why don't you just put it on a normal trailer and hang off the back?
if it's self-supporting, if the product itself, if you throw a 90, let's do this easy, a 98-foot boom on a 48-foot trailer, 50 feet hanging off the back end, which is longer than your trailer.
Yeah.
It's going to go.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So if you can stretch the axles and the tires out to support the back end,
Yep.
that's why you do it.
And for weight ratios too.
And yeah, to be legal for weight. So we do a lot of stretch work.
Yeah. It's fun.
It's another challenge. I don't mind hauling wide. I don't mind hauling long. I don't really like hauling tall. And again, it's a personal thing.
Which is
it's hard for me
Yep.
to judge the height of that power line. If they told me this was a safe route, but I'm still always second guessing it.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I mean, does that lead us into our tip for the week?
What's our tip for the week?
The frost and heat?
Sure. Just another thing to think about. Actually,
Should we do that
let's
later?
go back to hours. Let's go back to
Teaser?
daylight,
Okay.
like the daylight hours.
Yep.
So in the summer,
Yep.
your daylight hours of operation, ballpark in here, you may gain 3 hours a day.
Yep.
You know, the sun rises at 5:30 versus right now in the winter where it's rising at 7.
Yep. And setting at 4:30.
Right. So the hours of service create other obstacles.
Yep.
Along those lines, like you were going to get to, frost, cold and heat. Frost raises roads. So in the middle of May, the dimension of this bridge to the road is 15 feet. Okay. Let's say the frost heaved that road
An inch even.
6 inches.
Yep.
Now that 15 feet isn't legit.
Now it's 14.6.
Right. And that's where like a route survey would come in.
Yep.
Also with power lines. In the winter, power lines are cold, they're tight.
Yep.
In the summer, they're heated up and they droop. How far do they droop? Well, obviously depends on a lot of things, but that is that's all stuff that people don't think about.
And it's little things like that could legitimately save you from making the phone call that you have that you hit a bridge or you just rip down a power line and now the whole city's out of power. I don't know if that would happen. I'm not an electrician, so I don't support that statement. But
those that all goes into planning, and no matter who you use as a carrier, make sure they at least
have done it before.
do they give you a good feeling.
Yeah.
And us as a carrier, make sure your drivers know you're comfortable with the driver ability.
Yep.
Like I said, I don't like hauling tall stuff. I'm probably not the best guy to put on an 18-foot tall. We have other guys that are.
A guy like Keith would love that.
Yeah.
He would be all over it, and he's done it. And to him, that's like driving a go-kart. He's this is fine.
So with like long stuff, it's funny. We'll move stuff locally or wherever, and your turning radius changes. You need more room, and
The school bus effect.
then there's a school bus effect if there's something hanging off the back of it.
Yep.
So John will always come back. Yep, didn't hit any curbs, because he had such a longer turning radius. So it's kind of a challenge there, but experience as you do it more, it gets easier.
Just like everything.
Yeah, and if it's borderline, or if it's something that, like those trusses were 90 feet long, I think, and
Yeah.
14 wide.
14 wide at the point.
I don't think we needed an Escort until we were at 15 wide, but we sent an Escort, and it was kind of the same thing along the lines of our target.
We were going through a lot of small towns too, and
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know, like the last time an Escort or whoever may have been through that town, that road could have changed, or someone could have put on a porch in front of a coffee shop, and now you can't make that turn.
Just because you don't need it doesn't mean you shouldn't have it.
No, sometimes it's better safe than sorry, and I think it's probably a fair thing to live by if you're doing this oversized, overdimensional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cut corners.
Yeah.
I think the only thing we have to talk about in transporting a load yet is, I guess in a sense for a shipper would be like securement.
Okay.
We didn't hit on that yet. I mean, there's plenty of other things, and maybe that's for a different time, but
Well, there's other. I mean, we could get into weights and
Yep.
axle rating and tire
could
rating.
go on and on.
Yeah, and if somebody wants us to do that, we can do that at a later time.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. Shoot us a message. We'll gladly answer any questions you got.
Load securement.
Yeah.
When Taylor put up that pipe load, you'll see an example of load securement.
I think there was 70 straps on there, if we
Yeah.
counted right.
We have working with your shipper or your customer is important too. Hey, we're gonna transport this big generator. Let's just say, where can we tie it down? Or hey, that tank, there's no place to tie it down. Could you weld a D-ring on there so we can chain to it?
Yep.
Those things are important. We have a great customer who boat wraps everything for us.
Yep.
So a boat wrap, you've probably all seen it at the marina. Like in the winter, they wrap them in plastic.
It's basically shrink wrap, but a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So they boat wrap stuff.
Which my initial problem with that is, How do you know what's under there to tie down?
Exactly. But they do.
Yeah.
And what they do is when they create their crates for their product, they engineer the crates based on load securement.
Yep.
So
Which is awesome.
it's fantastic.
Yep.
So they'll put the product in this crate, they will bolt wrap it, and then they have markings on the crate of where we can strap it down. They even will cut the bolt wrap,
Yep.
and they'll run strings through the product for us to tie our straps to
To pull
pull
them
them
through.
to so they're in the proper place. It's great.
phenomenal.
Yes.
They even have the knockouts in, so if we got a chain or whatever, we can do that. So
Yeah.
it's awesome. Did you want to show them what a standard strap or chain looks like?
We can.
Do
Sure.
you want to?
Sure.
All right.
I mean, we're going to get into working load limits and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but we can.
Yeah. So
So, all right.
grab that.
So very basic. And everybody's going to say this is super boring, but basic and essential. So on here, you got a working load limit. This is a standard 4-inch strap that we use every day.
Which is mandated for securement.
Yes,
Yes.
working load limit. This has got to be on your product, whether it's a 4-inch strap, 2-inch strap, 1-inch strap.
It's got to have this tag.
Yes, and that tells you that this strap is rated for 5,400 pounds.
What does that mean?
That means that's the working load limit. You can tie down 5,400 pounds with that.
Okay.
Now, we can get into direct
yeah,
and
we don't
indirect,
need-
but
yeah.
as a rule of thumb, 5,400 pounds. So if you're,
Simple math.
simple math, all right. So if your product is 10,000 pounds, you need 2 straps on it.
Because you can only. Sorry, cut that out, Taylor. You might have to edit that.
Got it.
But simple math. 54 plus 54, you're a little bit over.
You're
but-
10.8, so
yep,
you have to have 2
yep.
straps on it.
So-
So that's the basics of a strap. This chain, so this is
Now there's different size chains.
correct. This is your standard transport chain. You know, you get into heavy haul, you get bigger, but this is 3A. So what that means is this is 3/8 inch chain, and this is grade 70 transport chain. So this needs to be rated and tagged also. On here, it says G70, which means grade 70 on the hook. Also on the links, it says, not all the links, but they are also rated. I think it says G7, which stands for 70. It's right here, actually. S7. I don't remember what that exactly means, but it's grade 70 transport chain. And also another kind of little fact, which you probably don't know.
I don't.
This. So if you look at the clevis pin, it's pointed out,
Yep.
and that's the way it should be. If you think about it, you're going to wrap this chain on something, right? So your product's in here. This, if you had this flipped the other way and this cotter pin was in here, it could potentially push against your product,
Pop
push
out.
and break the pin and push the pin out. That's why we run the cotter pins on the outside.
That's a cool
Little
little
known
tip.
fact.
Yeah.
But if you see chains, that's how we do it.
Another thing you can get, it's a standard cargo securement handbook. It literally breaks down everything, what your grades are, what the requirements are, the tie points, how to strap down coils, pipe, everything. The DOT regulations. I think this one is JJ Keller. Yep. So you can go onto their website and buy these. They're updated, I think, yearly.
Probably. Shows you how to do coils
Yeah,
and
everything. You can also look on YouTube.
yeah, just make sure you're doing it right.
Yep.
And that's why we are very stringent, I guess, on sending pictures.
Yep.
Everybody has a bad day. Everybody will eventually, get tired or have a shortcut, and that's why we send pictures to make sure. You came to me the other day. You're like, "Hey, this just doesn't look right."
Yep.
And I don't know what's wrong with it, but it just doesn't look right. At the end of the day, it was okay.
Yep.
It wasn't the way I would have probably done it, but it was safe and it was secure. So,
I guess kind of a first for the Another Dimension podcast. I think we're going to call Brad here, who does our
Okay.
heavy haul.
Yeah.
Unless you had something else.
no, that's great. Brad's a heavy haul project manager down in Indiana
that we have for us.
that we have, and
He's kind of going to hit on how he ensures for the customer a load gets delivered safely and on time, and some of those processes. Just kind of reiterate the things that we talked about.
perfect.
So we'll see how this goes.
Good luck.
Hope he answers.
Before Brad answers, I guess I could just, no, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I just want to not have dead time.
Should we just talk while we're doing this?
Yeah.
All right.
I can cut this out too. I can cut to when right before he picks up.
Okay.
We'll do that. Is that speaker? Yeah. And you can hold it. Yep. Perfect. Just like that should be good.
We're super high tech here.
You talk to me.
Hello?
Brad,
Hey.
hey, I need to legally tell you that you're being recorded,
Oh, okay.
It will be used against you in a court of law.
and it will be used against you in the court of law.
Uh,
Hey,
uh,
you sound concerned.
yeah.
Taylor, the volumes look good. I know this is super high tech here, but
Nope. Hold it right there. You're good.
alrighty. Brad, you kind of know what's going on here, but you've done this a bunch of times. Whether I should say you've done over dimensional shipments a bunch in your life,
Experience with them.
Yes.
and you have lots of experience. Can you give us a quick high view, what you do from start to finish to make sure that the customer's product and everything gets done, completed, and correctly on time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first and foremost, a customer comes to us with a quote or an RFQ for future projects. So we'll go through and verify all the dimensions. That way, from the get-go, we have accurate quoting that covers the expenses that we have incurred, on the haul itself. And then we move forward with planning of departure dates from shippers. We have to, and then line up all the proper equipment that we need also.
Talk about the length of the planning process.
Brad,
we
Brad,
did 20 foot wide.
Let's theoretically say we're doing a 25 or 20-foot load, wide load from Ohio to Kentucky.
Okay, yeah.
What's the planning process timeline for that, and what are the ins and outs that go along with something that size?
Well, if a customer comes to us with a load that size, we would go first and foremost. It's going to be 45 to 60 days, most generally because of planning issues. Construction, we got to look into by state. So, for instance, if it's a load coming out of Wisconsin going to Indiana, we're gonna contact the states of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana, and start planning and seeing what kind of routing is available.
Okay.
And then we're going to set up someone to physically go out and drive those route surveys, whether we do it in-house or a third-party pilot company.
Okay.
Once everything there is verified, that we can make the turns, the radiuses, things like that, and then we start ordering the permits and getting the routes approved through the state.
Depending on the state, I guess, how long does something like that take?
On an average, most states are pretty good to work with. 2 to 3 weeks, once we turn in the route survey that we know we can make that route, we usually can have permits in hand.
And what do you do, I guess, customers may want to hear this, but what do you do in the meantime from the time that you have the route survey turned in to the time you have permits in hand? What goes on in between that 2 to 3 weeks?
First and foremost, we're getting our equipment in line, just making sure everything, of course, our maintenance is second to none, but double checking all that, speaking with the driver, letting the driver know what the approved route is so he can go ahead and kind of get an overview and an idea what is entailed for him coming up. Always communicate with the customer, getting updates from the states, what the process is, what kind of more time we have, anything of that nature.
Awesome. This is just a random question that I just thought of, but how many times have you had an approved route come back approved, you submit for permits, and then by the time 2-3 weeks goes by, you have your permits in hand, and all of a sudden the route's not approved anymore?
Not very often. Most generally, states, if we say, hey, we're going to order this route survey, or we have this route survey, done today, January the 15th, we're going to move this load on February the 10th. Most generally, we're not going to get our actual permits from the state no more than maybe 2 to 3 business days before our actual move date.
Okay.
So very rarely, every now and then, maybe a state might throw up and say, hey, because of this, we have to go on the west side of a bypass on a city instead of the east side. And then we're going to have to send somebody out there as soon as possible to just double check that route.
Okay. You got anything else from Brad?
No, it's just there's a tremendous amount of planning that goes into these things.
Yep.
And things can go wrong, but just be prepared.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so over prepare and always double check and just work hand in hand with the customer and the states.
Perfect. Thanks for answering, Brad.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be hearing. We'll be using you more here as a reference, just simply because Brad is the guy that handles this overdimensional stuff for us, and really kind of the guy we learned from here. So, Brad, with that being said, I'm going to hang up here, and we're going to continue on, and I'm sure I'll talk to you later this afternoon.
All right, great. Thanks.
All right.
Good hearing from you guys.
Yep. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks. Bye.
Kind of wraps it up, right?
Yeah.
I don't have anything to really add.
No, I mean, I'm sure we missed some things.
Yes,
And-
there's a lot of things we could get into with the working load limit stuff. We could get into
Tie-down
axle
points.
weights and tire ratings and what goes into a heavy load.
Yeah.
Hey, can you go across this bridge or
Yeah.
whatever?
Bridge studies.
If
We can go down a lot of wormholes.
if somebody wants us to, we will gladly get into that. Just let us know.
Our wives might actually like that, so we're not talking to them about it. But, but yeah, I guess with that being said,
Let's wrap it up.
let's wrap it up. We got to do our contest from last week.
Okay.
You want to hit that?
Yeah. So the question last week was, what natural disaster did Quick Transport drive through? The answer was Hurricane Harvey, and the winner was Leanne Puffy. Congratulations.
Congrats, Mom.
I was waiting for it.
Wow.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to continue to like and subscribe to the podcast.
At least we have one
Yeah, I think yeah.
fan.
We had a bunch of submissions this week.
I know.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
So this week's question, which references last week's podcast, is what % deadhead does Quick Transport try to maintain?
And can you describe deadhead one more time?
Yeah,
for anybody
deadhead
watching?
is the basically amount of unpaid miles, your empty miles from where you dropped your load off to where you dropped your freight off to where you're picking up the next
Shipment.
shipment. Thank you.
Yeah,
So that is what deadhead is. So what % do we try to maintain?
absolutely. I guess, yeah, so we just did the question, do the shout outs, and then sign off and kind of do that. Make sure you guys are following us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Like, subscribe. If you could share the post, that'd be great. Make sure to comment on our Facebook page, the answer to the question this week, or not comment, message us. Tune in next week. We'll keep doing these weekly. Thank you for everything so far. It's been lots of fun. As you can see, we're using our new.
We upgraded, and we may change it up again here in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've had good. We got these Rode Pod mics.
And
Taylor
the
was
arms.
super.
It's like a kid in a candy shop, like
they came
opening
in
his
yesterday,
presents.
and Taylor's like, "Can I open those?"
Yeah, sure.
Go nuts.
Can't help myself.
So thank you. We had no idea where this was going to lead, but it's been
Been fun so
good
far.
so far. And
It's helped us out a lot.
yeah, truly, if you guys have any feedback or ideas, let us know.
It's January in Wisconsin, and the Packers are in the playoffs
At home,
at home against the team from
the Shaky City.
the Shaky City, Los Angeles.
There you go.
I think we got a couple things going for us, with that being the weather, but I really hope the Pack pulls this one out. I think they will. I'm going to go on air and give my prediction. We'll see who's closer. We'll
Let's do
discuss
it.
it next
Let's
week.
go around the board.
I'm going to say 31. I'm going to say 31-27 the Pack.
I don't think they can put 31 on the Rams. I'm going,
Goff and his little broken thumb.
yeah, so 27 Packers, 17 Rams.
Okay.
Quinn's pretty close to what I would have said. 27-20 is
Okay.
my prediction.
All right.
Okay. We'll tune in
That's
next
for,
week.
Is that for a warm Coke? Huh? Is it, what's the bet?
This is warm. I've been drinking it all episode. It's open.
I thought you always drink it warm. Anyway.
No. Get it out of the fridge. What's the bet?
Lunch.
All right. Who's ever closest? If I'm closest, I get to sign your cast.
Fine.
Okay.
And if Quinn wins, we'll figure out what he gets to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be good.
Okay.
I'll come up with something.
All right. Perfect.
All right. That's it. Thanks,
That's it.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.